If I'm to be honest, I think far too many writers nowadays screw up their villains by making them fit far too stereotypically into one of two categories. They're either evil purely for the sake of evil, with no backstory and no deep motives to explain why they do what they do, or they have deep and tragic backstories and motives that are clearly meant to make us sympathize with them and even feel bad for them. Max Jägerman fits into neither of these. He's a literal monster, but monsters can have depth too.
Max Jägerman!
Maxwell Jägerman.
Maxie Poo's about to get you!
Max is a villain who's evil for the sake of fun and power because of a motive with tragic origins, but that doesn't make us sympathize or feel bad for him. Giving a character who at first glance looks like a classic archetype, at second glance looks like he still might be that archetype, and at the end of the show might still be viewed as that stock character is no easy task. But the Langs aren't known for taking easy and stereotypical paths with their stories, are they? Someone could watch the entirety of Nerdy Prudes Must Die without giving Max's depth a second thought, and in this case, that's a good thing. The story's still watchable and enjoyable without Max seeming like the deepest character out there. However, Max is in no way just your stereotypical bully character. His depth and true motives are merely not on display. Nick and Matt snuck in depth and room for theories with just a few select lines, and of course, implications. In this video, it's time to explore that depth. Before we get started, a quick trigger warning. This video will touch on topics of domestic abuse, child abuse, emotional abuse and manipulation, golden child syndrome, and bullying. If any of these are triggering topics for you, proceed with caution. I also want to say that this whole analysis and all the theories I'm going to discuss that explain why Max is the way he is do not justify or excuse his actions. He's a horrible person. Before his death, he made countless people's lives miserable, and after he died, well, I don't even need to go into how unacceptable and wrong all that is, do I? Just because he may have a reason for being an asshole doesn't mean he's excused. With that said, are you ready? Let's go! Max has lots and lots of traits and characteristics we associate with a stereotypical bully character we've seen again and again. He's mean every chance he gets, even if it's for the stupidest, least substantial reasons, like Richie walking in the same hallway as him. He's self-absorbed or obsessed, literally thinking himself a god amongst his peers. In a similar field of traits, he's the star player on a sports team, complete with a Letterman jacket. Everyone bows at his feet, doing whatever he tells them or indicates for them to do. Like not date their crush, stay still while he threatens them, or drop to the ground and do push-ups. And finally, he's not that smart and doesn't seem to take school that seriously. He's in remedial algebra, he confidently mispronounces rendezvous, his tutor gave up on him, and he's got an all-around air of not being the sharpest tool in the shed. These are all traits we've seen before, and that when we see them all in combination, we think of a fictional school bully. These traits are the ones that really stand out in Max. That the ones he displays most often and most heavily, so when we watch Nerdy Prudes, we see that, yup, Max is a bully. And most people are happy with that. It's a good story with a good take on the archetype. But really, it's only the start. The more you watch, the more lines you really listen to, and the more implications you think about, the more Max starts seeming like, maybe there's more to him than just being a high school bully. There are two lines I'm generally guessing most of you thought of.
Don't need no one to tell me high school will be my peak.
Maybe I should just run! Where, Max? Back home so Dad can call you a little cuck?
We'll gloss over the second one for now, but we'll return to it later, because believe me, there's a lot to say about Max and Mr. Jagerman. But for now, we'll use that lyric from Literal Monster as our starting point. Max was fully aware that high school would be the time of his life where he felt the most successful and important, that it would be his peak. This immediately sets him apart from most fictional bullies who never show this level of awareness about their position. This knowledge should be something that would help undo his fate. If you're aware that you'll never feel quite as good as you do right now, that should open your eyes to the desire and ability to clear the path for improvement. But it doesn't do this for Max. When he realized he was going to peak in high school, he didn't think that maybe he should try to better his grades to give him a better future, or that he should focus more on football to see if that could lead anywhere. Meaning that either, A, he's so sure his future is fucked that he doesn't even consider the possibility of changing it, or B, he's got other priorities that are more important to him, and thus he's more dedicated to them. Although I'd say it's most likely a mix of both. The line that most clearly and most strongly supports option A is,
I used to worry my life would be over after high school.
What supports option B is implications throughout the entire show. Let's take a quick deeper look at option A. Used to worry implies that this is something Max has actually given thought to in the past. So what options could he have gone through? What possible paths could Max's future have taken? We know he's a great quarterback. Other characters constantly refer to him as the star quarterback or star player. The nerds who hated Max even equate the Nighthawks' loss at the game to Max's absence. Even the freaking Chassidys know how good he is, and I don't know about you, but I don't think any of them are that into high school football. So could Max have taken that path and become a great football player? Well, we don't know. There's not quite enough information to say for sure. So if not football, what else could Max's future have held? Considering he's in remedial algebra, we can assume his GPA isn't fantastic, meaning he wouldn't have had any major chances of getting into any great schools. That is, if he even would have wanted to go to college at all. If he wouldn't, he would have gone into a typical just out of high school, low-paying job. For someone who's used to being at the very top of the food chain, this would be quite a downgrade. It very well might feel to him like that would be the end of his life. Yet he still doesn't do anything to try to make his grades better so he can have a better future than that. Somewhere down the line for anyone who's like Max in high school comes the realization that high school status and popularity doesn't matter at all in later life. But then the interesting thing about Max comes back, because the implication of this line
Don't need no one to tell me high school will be my peak.
is that Max already has had this realization. The conclusion we can assume Max came to is that his post-high school future looks quite bleak. Now that we've ended up back at why doesn't he do anything to prevent that, let's look closer at option B. Max doesn't do anything about the fact that he will peak in high school because he's got other priorities that are more important to him than saving his future. This priority of his is quite easy to pinpoint. What matters to Max more than his grades, more than his future, more than his life or death, is his reputation and control at Hatchetfield High. Max was, in his own words, Hatchetfield High's god. In many ways, yeah, this was true. People followed his orders without much resistance or obvious complaint. If he wanted someone to fear him, they feared him. If he wanted someone to look up to him, they sought his approval. If he wanted to have sex with someone, they wanted to... In my Richie's death video, I likened Hatchetfield High to a kingdom where Max was the king, the popular kids were the nobles, and the nerds were the peasants. Being the king of this kingdom was the best thing in Max's life, and quite possibly one of the only things that let him feel a semblance of something like joy. It let him feel like he was in control of something, like he had something he could trust and count on. Nothing mattered more to him than his high school kingdom, and now it's time to look at why. Oh yeah, it's time to look at that endlessly important piece of the puzzle.
Maybe I should just run. Where, Max? Back home so Dad can call you a little cuck? Can't even fight off one lousy skeleton? No, I got no choice.
These few lines give us so much. Let's list the surface level of what they tell us. 1. Max's dad is emotionally abusive. 2. He puts Max down for showing fear and or apprehension. 3. He encourages fighting over fleeing and will berate those who do otherwise. Now let's do a Hatchetfield fan's favorite thing. Let's think and talk about the implications. And then let's also do a whole bunch of theorizing. No one is born a bully. Kids who turn into bullies, especially the kind who goes to lengths as far as Max, learn that behavior from somewhere. More often than not, they learn it from the adults they spend the most time with and look up to the most. Their parents. These lines of Max's imply quite heavily that this is the case with him, specifically that he learned his behaviors from his father. Let's look at a couple of clips from my Richie video. In Max's opinion, being physically strong, being into normal things, and being stereotypically cool is what makes someone strong. Unfortunately, Max doesn't abide by anyone's rules but his own. I deliberately left a little bit out of these clips because if I dove into it in that video, that video would have been way too long and it would have gotten so off topic. But this opinion and those rules likely aren't views that are original to Max. Max didn't come up with this definition of strength and the rules that came with it. He was taught those things. By who? Well, I don't even need to tell you. Max has internalized these beliefs in all likelihood under pressure from his dad, and now they've become core parts of his personality. He works according to these rules, and by extension, so does Hatchetfield High. But where did that start? And more importantly, how did that start? Max has been bullying people, at least Pete, since the 4th grade.
We've been doing this song and dance since the 4th grade, Max.
Which in Hatchetfield's school system would indicate Max's reign of bullying and controlling everyone started when he was 10. 10 is right around the age where kids start seeking approval from their peers. By that age, Max would already know how to get approval from his dad, by being physically strong, liking cool things, and by not showing any hints of weakness. Now that 10-year-old Max wanted approval and respect from his classmates as well, he presumably applied the same methods. And guess what? It worked! His classmates started viewing him as cool and respectable. But it didn't only work, no. When he started acting like this, he noticed something else he could do. There are a few main reasons school bullies do what they do. Among them we have that they're insecure and jealous, and they're deflecting by making others feel bad. This is the most common one we hear. Bullies are insecure about themselves and are jealous of you. Max, though, isn't insecure about himself, at least not in this way. We never really see any trace of that. Scared once, yes, and he mentions being worried, but never insecure about his position at school or about himself. The opposite applies even. He views himself as a god, like he's better than everyone else. We also have bullies are scared of being looked down upon by others, so they pick on those below them. We're getting a little closer with this one, but this reason's more fitting of people like Jason and Kyle, who aren't the main instigators of the bullying, but who go along with it. Finally, our most likely jackpot, kids bully others to assert a sense of control they can't get from elsewhere. If Max's dad controls him when he isn't even present, we can quite fairly assume he controls him even more at home. Quite likely, Mr. Jägerman has been controlling Max, Max's opinions, Max's beliefs, what Max does, who Max can hang out with, etc., for most of his life. Connecting back to what I said about bullies learning their behaviors and beliefs from at home, behaviors and beliefs like those would have been enforced in the Jagerman house since Max was young. When you grow up with the belief this way, it becomes a part of you. Thinking about this and the line about Max's dad calling him a little cock, it becomes pretty clear that Max's dad pressures Max to be the way he is, and likely always has. In other words, Max's dad controls everything about Max and the Jägerman family's life at home. His main methods are verbal berating, like we hear when Ruth the Skeleton appears, emotional abuse by pressuring him to always be strong, and possibly also some forms of physical abuse, once again considering how most bullies learn their behavior at home. Now let's ask a classic question. Why? Why is Mr. Jägerman like this, and why does he make Max act this way? There are many theories and explanations to be made, but the one we'll be diving deeper into is that of a narcissistic parent. Children of narcissists often end up in one of three roles. A golden child, the favorite, a scapegoat, the one who gets the blame for everything, or a lost child, the one who's forgotten and or overlooked. I myself am a lost child, my sister a golden child. To us, Max sounds an awful lot like a golden child, sometimes doubling as a scapegoat. Narcissistic parents treat their golden children by basically making them their favorite child, but this is in no way a good thing for the golden child. To use Max as an example here, Max is his dad's golden child because Mr. Jägerman sees a lot of himself in Max. Another typical of parent-child duos like this is that the parent will either try to recreate their younger self's glory days through their child, or they will try to live out an idealized version of their younger days vicariously through their child. The child is either a copy of the parent or an idealized copy, and this is why they're the favorite. Can you see how this could be Max and his dad? Max's dad very well may have been a stereotypically cool and strong, popular star football player, who's now reliving all that by making Max fit those characteristics as well. On the other hand, he may have been none of that, but he wishes he had been, and thus is making sure his son is. In our point of view, Max's dad has succeeded. Max is that stereotypically cool football player. But here's the thing about narcissistic parents. They are impossibly hard to please. Any moment of weakness would have been enough for Mr. Jägerman to say that his son is not meeting his expectations. When golden children fail to meet these expectations, they're met with disappointment. They become too weak, they become failures, they become little cocks. Max isn't insecure about himself in a way that he needs to take it out on others. He's insecure that he can't meet his dad's expectations. As a golden child, there are two overarching paths you can take, and you are barely in control of which one you wind up on. Either you realize you have golden child syndrome and you can start breaking out of it, or you never realize what's going on and the never-ending cycle of pressure, praise and scolding turns you into a narcissist as well. This seems to be what's going on with Max. Max has no one who could support him on a journey to the brighter end of golden child syndrome. He's left to fend for himself, and since he's not aware of the situation, he can't work his way out of it. Instead, he's well on his way to becoming a narcissist. So far on the way, in fact, that he's already passed the goal and acquired himself a god complex. In or around the 4th grade, when he applied the methods he used to make his dad approve of him to make his classmates respect him, he discovered he not only could make them think he's cool, he could also control them. When he started acting the way he acts, they started bending to his wishes, and holy shit did he enjoy it! Over the next 8 years, he built the kingdom we see in Nerdy Prudes Must Die. He's the king and the god, and everyone else is in tiers below him. The football guys, cheerleaders and popular kids in the highest tier, and the nerds and geeks in the lowest. To answer the question that might arise of how much he actually cares about his Hatchetfield High Kingdom, I'll say this. It doesn't seem like Max has much control of his home life, so controlling his school life became extremely important to him. Being Hatchetfield High's god is his everything, and I'd say this reputation almost undeniably matters to him. It matters so much that I've had to plan 5 more videos centered around Max, because if I put everything in this one, it would be like an hour long. For now, though, we'll focus on this one thing.
Look what you fucking nerds made me do! I pissed my fucking pants!
Haha, funny throwaway line because they said they were gonna make him wet himself with fear, right? No! Don't forget what's not being said in this clip. What is being said is...
I pissed my fucking pants!
What's not being said is... Holy shit, I just fell 3 stories and am now impaled on a spike of planks. In this scene, the thing that's threatening his reputation as the cool, all-controlling jock is more important than the thing threatening his life. But what if that's the way it's always been? What if that's just getting at another point? What if that's only one piece of the puzzle, and when we put all the pieces together, they spell out one clear message? Max doesn't give a shit that he died. Not even that he double died. He couldn't care less. In Wayland Hall, he's impaled and rapidly dying because of it, but he focuses more on the fact that he's pissed himself, and the fact that he thinks nerds suck. There's no pleas for help, nothing about the fact that he's dying, no you fucking killed me, no distress. He comes back as a ghost and he basically goes, this isn't so bad, I can kill nerds now. The Lords in Black come to drag him down to Drowsy Town, essentially killing his ghost, but whatever. Who cares? It was fucking worth it. In my analysis video of Richie's death, I spoke a bit about how Max isn't killing for revenge for his death, and this is the topic of that discussion that I purposely left out of that video to save for this one instead. The final, and probably most major piece of evidence that suggests Max didn't go on his nerd-killing spree to get revenge on them for killing him is this. It's that he could give 2 shits that they did that. He could give 2 shits that his life is over, because as far as he was concerned, it would be anyway in just a few months, when he graduated and lost everything he built up at school. Whether he's alive or dead, it doesn't matter at all, because what's most important to him, the only thing that's important to him, is his reputation. He takes advantage of his time as king of a kingdom by exerting his strength and control in every way he can, until his life will be over, whether that means by death or by graduating and becoming a loser with a low-paying job. For now, being the top of the ranks amongst the Hatchetfield Nighthawks really does matter to him. If you need more proof of that, look at his last words in action. Despite the fact that it takes clear effort, he pulls his hands and leg into the school cheer position and says, being a Nighthawk was where he felt the best, where he had the power and control he didn't have at home. He was the king of the school, but he wasn't the king of his own life. That was his dad. But that's not entirely it either. There's even more to unpack. Something I started pondering while making my Richie's death video was how Max seems to care a fair bit about being betrayed. For one, there's the whole thing about Steph.
You betrayed me! You fucking Judas!
For two, there was how he brutally tortured and killed Richie right after Jason and Kyle accepted him, thereby betraying Max and his ideas. For three, the first and only time he's angry and resentful at Grace is right after she reveals she's tricked and betrayed him. One's an event, two's a coincidence, three means something. This is when I knew I could be onto something. You could even say there's a fourth example as well. The nerds making him piss himself and die right after luring him with the nicest thing anyone's ever done for him. Being in control of people doesn't only mean you can decide what they do and don't do. It also means there's predictability in what happens around you. If you decide who does what, there won't be any surprises of someone disagreeing with you, doing something you don't like, or perhaps trying to be the boss of you. Like, Mr. Jagerman. Through his dad, Max has learned that if he doesn't decide what people do, they will do bad things to him. People would never willingly do good things for him unless he asks them to. This is part of why he's so shocked when the nerds would do something as nice for him as the prank. By establishing that he's the god who decides everything about everyone, he's eliminated the possibility of people doing to him what his dad does to him. He can now count on these people. There's a sense of twisted trust to how Max views everyone else. He decides everything, meaning he can now trust everything around him. When he returns as a ghost after his death, he sees how everyone is changing, disregarding the decisions he made for them, and it makes him feel like shit. I have no doubt that he's furious at everyone, popular kids included, but since his loss of control happened because of Steph and the nerds, they're the ones he has to kill. The prank gone wrong and his death proved to him that he can't control them even if he tries. They betrayed him by defying what he decided about them. Nerds have more power than he thought, and thus, they gotta go. Max isn't very observant of other people's feelings. He's the type of person who makes up his mind about what other people think and feel, not the type who reads into what they say and do to decipher what they actually think and feel. Look at how he treats Grace in the beginning. He's decided that she wants to sleep with him and he won't take no for an answer even when she clearly doesn't show any signs of being interested. The only way to change his mind about what you feel is to make a very loud, irrefutable statement of the contrary. A big prank or party like this is the only thing that could have convinced him the nerds are cooler than he thought, for example. The 2 weeks between his death and his ghostly return are filled with everyone acting differently than he wants them to, all of them betraying his twisted trust. There's only one person who doesn't outright defy what he's decided about them until the very end.
Grace Chastity.
In our perception, Grace changes quite a lot from this scene.
I am only one man's girl, Max, and his name is Jesus Christ.
To this scene.
So you do know the Bible.
In Max's, she doesn't. He makes it clear from the very beginning that he thinks Grace is a dirty girl who wants to and will have sex with him eventually. She's just repressed and therefore won't admit it. Grace only saying she doesn't means nothing to him because he's already made up his mind. When she comes out at the end saying she's a dirty girl, he's delighted he was right, and surprised she, as a repressed chick, is ready to say it to him. Then comes the one and only time he's angry at Grace. She says and proves that she's betrayed him, and immediately he shows her the same fury he's shown everyone else.
What?
Having control over his peers provides him with a sense of trust and predictability that he can't get anywhere else. But we're still not done. There's still one pivotal thing we haven't touched upon, and that is how quickly and easily all of Max's toughness and control complexes fall away in the Wayland Hall scene. Max is narcissistic, mean, controlling, and inconsiderate. But here it all just disappears. It's not like we're seeing another side of him, no, it feels like we're seeing him shed the skin of who he usually is. These two Maxes, the usual angry Max and the happy Max, can't exist simultaneously. It's one or the other, and one resides over the other. In my analysis video of Milo from Arcane, I used a real Milo versus fake Milo method to distinguish between when Milo's being his real self and when he's got his cool and confident act switch on. Something similar is going on with Max, although it's not quite the same. I don't think the version we most see of Max is an act as much as it is an exaggeration of his traits. We're not seeing real Max and fake Max. We're seeing natural Max versus exaggerated Max. Natural Max is who Max is without all the beliefs his dad has bestowed upon him. He briefly appears earlier in the show, namely here.
Spunk! You're funny. Can I carry your books for you?
He talks differently, he holds himself differently, he's not at all the same Max we usually see. Exaggerated Max is a hyper-extension of some of its traits, specifically the traits his dad praises like strength, supremacy, and everything else that makes him a stereotypical jock. This is the Max we see the entire rest of the time before he dies.
Meaning I gotta walk through this hallway and I don't need you stinking it up! Ugh! So you're a poor piece of shit then?
Exaggerated Max may very well have started as nothing but a forced version of himself, tailored to make his father and classmates approve of him and think he's cool. He's the Max that can get the control and trust that he can't get at home. He's the Max that he's the most confident being. But then that begs the question, how long does it take until this exaggeration of himself becomes simply who he is? In the end, the cool and amazing thing about all this isn't that everything I've discussed in this video is 100% undeniable canon, because it's not. We don't know how much of it, or if any of it, is the way the Langs meant for it all to be seen and interpreted. The incredibly cool thing is that just because of a couple of lines, analysis of theories this deep and intricate can be made. All the while, no matter what you theorize, Max becomes no less of a terrible person, while becoming way more of a compelling and interesting villain. That is the power of storytelling, and that is cool. So my sister is the one who got me into Hatchetfield. I watched all the shows with her when I first watched them, and, well, she's the one who introduced me to a bunch of these theories and ideas about Max, so she's to blame for a bunch of it.
I projected onto him.
Yeah, she's here with me right now.
I'm here!
And, yeah, we're gonna just discuss a bit. So, Max.
That's me.
Where did you first start thinking all this about Max, that he was a golden child and everything?
How did the show go again? I think it was mostly when the prank.
The dad line.
The dad line and the dropping of the sort of exaggeration and all of that.
Do you have any more Max theories of your own that I didn't speak of in this video?
No, not really, I don't think. Because, I think you've kind of just put in everything that
I have kind of put in everything that you've told me. So let's talk a bit more about the golden child syndrome. You are a golden child.
Hell yeah, brother. I don't know why I called you that.
You are a golden child, and therefore you think Max is a golden child.
Yeah, I just recognize a lot of myself in that bitch. Because, a lot of it just comes down to the difference of, support and how deep into it you are, and also,
if you know you have golden child syndrome or
yeah,
not.
which also depends on the support and how deep into it you are. So, because, a lot of it is also
Max
just,
doesn't know. He doesn't seem like he has any idea. Meanwhile, you do know, and you have done all the research and everything.
Yeah.
But Max has had access to none of that because he doesn't know that he is a golden child asshole who's becoming a narcissist.
I think part of it is also about the expectations and traits imposed on the golden child, because it's kind of part of the thing that I have been raised to be, pretty much, to be more inquisitive, you know, and all of that, whereas that isn't part of what... Because
Max has been, raised to be tough and strong with this incorrect definition of strength and toughness and coolness and what all that means. He's been raised to be an asshole, basically. Because
also...
You were raised to be...
Also an asshole, but more of the quiet, brooding type that's just smarter than everyone. Because that's what that is. But, it
comes down to...
Yeah.
It comes down to the narcissistic parent, how they raise their golden children.
And then, something that I think people don't realize is that flaws are also a part of that. Because a lot of the time with narcissistic people, they'll see their own flaws as a good thing. Dad is antisocial and all of that, but he thinks that's a good thing. He thinks that just means that
he's better than everyone.
Yeah, and that
he doesn't have time for everyone.
They just don't get him, you know. So it's actually a sign that he's better than everyone else. So then they impose those flaws on the golden child as well. So I think with Max it's probably a similar thing of his dad probably isn't very smart, but sees that as a good thing. Sees it as none of that matters.
School doesn't matter. You can do things anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe if Max's dad has a good job that he got without being top of his class or anything, it's you don't need to waste time on that. You have football.
Not even that. The thing is, the narcissistic parent doesn't even have to be successful for them to see that. Because if they aren't successful, then they just assume that everyone else in the world is wrong, not them. So they're
it's not their own fault that they're not successful, it's everyone else's.
Yeah, then it's they're perfect and they're supposed to be successful, and they would be if everyone else was just as good as them, you know?
So yeah, narcissists don't see their own flaws as flaws.
Yeah, they see them
as they twist them into strengths.
Yeah.
Even though no one else views them as strengths because they're not.
They aren't, is the thing.
And that would be clearly seen with Max here.
I have a big problem with, socializing, not just in that, I don't do it enough, but also that when I do, I tend to kind of just automatically be rude. Because that's because of the standards imposed onto me, I'm aware that that's a bad thing, but then there's always, that little subconscious thing of, no, this is how you're supposed to be. This means that you're good. This is how you're supposed to be.
And then there's the question of, if that applies to Max as well. Does he know that he's being mean? Or is it just no, this is the way I'm supposed to be? Does he have that awareness? Then it comes down again to, how aware is he of how bad he is?
I think he's fairly aware, but that could just be me projecting.
Yes, I don't get that much awareness of it.
Because, like, the thing with Golden Child Syndrome, at least in my experience, is that even if you're aware, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can fight it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like...
They were like talking like proof in the show that Max would be aware of it, which I don't see that much of.
That's fair, that's fair. Mm-hmm. So I just think there's not really much of a way to tell, because it's not really a thing that shines through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
So that's all up to interpretation.
It's very internal.
Mm-hmm. Shall we wrap it up there? Thank you for coming and discussing. You missed.
No, I got your thumb.
Bye.